On a quiet evening, Maria sat on the edge of her bed, her fingers trembling as she clutched her phone. Her heart was heavy, her eyes tired from crying too often. She looked at her 3 daughters sleeping peacefully, unaware of the storm in their mother's heart. "I'm not a baby-making machine," she whispered bitterly. Her voice was low, but it carried the weight of 10 long years. Her husband, Felix, had been living abroad ever since they got married. He left shortly after their traditional wedding, promising to process her visa and bring her over within months. That promise never came true. In 10 years of marriage, Maria had only seen Felix a handful of times. Each visit was brief, just long enough for him to get her pregnant again before flying back. Their first child was 6 now, the youngest just 4. And still, Felix hadn't returned. 10 good years, Maria muttered. All I get is a few days with him every 2 years, and only to make another baby. She felt like a single mother. No worse, like a widow whose husband still breathed somewhere far away. "Do you know what it means to be married to a ghost?" she had once asked her friend in frustration. Felix was unreachable. He wouldn't answer her calls. If she tried using a different number, he would block that too. The only time he reached out was to send money or ask about the children. Maria leaned her head against the wall, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I'm tired," she whispered again, but this time louder. She wasn't just tired, she was breaking. And the silence from Felix, the betrayal she had uncovered 4 years ago, made everything worse. Maria hadn't always lived in silence. When they first got married, Felix had been full of promises. "Just give me a little time," he had said, holding her hands under the old mango tree outside her mother's house. "Once I return, I'll start your visa process immediately. We'll be together abroad before the year ends." She had believed him. She was in love, young, hopeful, and proud to call him her husband. But months passed, then years. Each time she asked, it was another excuse. "The embassy's policies changed. I'm still sorting out documents. Be patient, my love." And Maria had waited. 6 whole years of waiting, asking, hoping. The breaking point came when she got curious. Something in her spirit wouldn't let her rest. She remembered how Felix had once confessed, just before they married, that he had married a white woman abroad to settle his papers. He swore it was only for survival. "It's just a document marriage," he had said. "Once I get everything sorted, I'll divorce her and bring you over." But 4 years ago Maria started digging. Quietly, cautiously, she asked a few friends, searched online, and followed breadcrumbs. What she discovered shattered her. Felix was still married to the white woman, and they had a child together. A whole other family. When she confronted him, his reaction was cold. "That's not true," he said. "People are feeding you lies." "No, Felix. I saw it myself," she had argued. But he just kept denying. Denying the truth. Denying her reality. After that confrontation, things changed drastically. Felix started avoiding her even more. He blocked her on all social media platforms. If she tried calling, he ignored her. When she used a different number, he blocked that too. Maria became a stranger to her own husband, a woman pushed into the shadows of his double life. "He only calls when he wants to send money or ask after the kids," she told her friend one afternoon, while sweeping the compound. "He doesn't even ask about me anymore." It was in those silent months that Maria felt the walls closing in. "Is this marriage?" she asked herself every night, staring at the empty space on the bed beside her. She raised 3 children alone. She attended parents' meetings, paid school fees from the little Felix sent, handled illnesses, and comforted their daughters whenever they cried out, "Where's Daddy?" She gave everything, asking only for presence, for commitment, for honesty. But Felix had robbed her of even that. The worst part wasn't just the lies. It was the way he ruined her life before disappearing. Maria remembered the man who had loved her before Felix came back into her life. Someone serious, loving, and ready to marry her. She had told Felix about him when he returned after years. She was honest. "I'm seeing someone. He wants to marry me," she had confessed. But Felix insisted, pushed his way back into her life, made promises again, and ruined the chance she had for a new beginning. Maria stared out the window of her small two-bedroom apartment, watching the wind rustle through the trees. Her daughters were playing in the corridor, their laughter echoing faintly. To outsiders, it looked like a peaceful home. But inside, Maria carried the heavy weight of disappointment. When Felix had come back those few years ago, he had come like a storm, full of charm and big dreams. "Forget that man," he said to her. "You're my wife. I didn't come this far to lose you to another man." He brought gifts, spent a few days, made love to her like a man desperate to reclaim his territory, and then he vanished again. She got pregnant not long after. And like the times before, she faced it all alone. Now at 33, Maria had 3 children, a broken marriage, and a life that seemed stuck in place. She could have moved on years ago, but love, blind, stubborn love, had held her hostage. And now, resentment had moved in where love used to live. One day she sat her friend Bola down and said, "If this was happening to you, what would you do?" Bola sighed. "You've given this man too many chances. He's never chosen you, Maria. Only himself." That truth cut deep. Maria tried to hold on to the little strength she had left. "I'm not asking for too much," she told her own reflection in the mirror one morning. "I just want to be treated like a wife, not a vessel for childbirth." She looked tired. Her eyes, once full of life, now looked hollow and worn. Her daughters were growing. The eldest had started asking difficult questions. "Mummy, why don't we live with Daddy? Why doesn't he come for my birthday?" Maria never knew what to say. She didn't want to poison their hearts, but how could she keep covering for a man who never showed up? Sometimes she would say, "Daddy is working hard so we can join him soon." But even that lie started to taste bitter in her mouth. She tried writing to Felix once more, an email filled with emotion and truth. "Felix," she wrote, "you made promises that you have not kept. I sacrificed love, time, and peace for you. I gave you children, loyalty, and patience. What have you given me in return? Silence, abandonment, lies." He never replied. But that night he sent money for the girls' school fees. Maria looked at the alert on her phone, her lips tightening. "Is that all I am worth now?" she whispered. "A transaction. A receipt." Her heart had already begun to close its doors. Maria sat with her mother one hot Sunday afternoon, under the shade of an old mango tree. They peeled corn together as they often did when Maria needed comfort. Her mother, Mama Elsie, looked at her daughter with sadness in her eyes. "My child," she said softly, "this isn't the life I prayed for you." Maria nodded slowly. "Me neither, Mama. But I stayed because I believed. 'Cause he said he loved me. Because I wanted to give my children a complete home." Mama Elsie shook her head. "A complete home isn't one where a woman suffers alone." Those words lingered. It had been 4 years since Felix last stepped foot in Nigeria. 4 years without a visit, a video call, or even a genuine conversation. When the last child was born, he didn't even call to hear her cry. He only sent a message. "Congratulations. Hope both of you are doing okay." Maria remembered holding her newborn that day and crying. "She doesn't even know her father's face," she sobbed. Neighbors began to whisper. "That woman's husband lives abroad, but she's always alone." Some said he must be dead. Others said she was foolish to keep waiting. She heard it all, and each word cut deeper than the last. Maria's friend Bola once asked her during a walk to the market, "Why don't you find a lawyer and start divorce proceedings?" Maria sighed. "Divorce? And then what? Raise 3 kids alone? Start dating at 33 with baggage and no support? But aren't you already raising them alone?" Bola asked gently. That truth was sharp. Maria had no real answer. She feared change. She feared judgment. But most of all, she feared starting over. Yet deep in her spirit, she knew she couldn't stay in this limbo forever. One night, after putting the kids to sleep, Maria sat down and wrote a letter she never intended to send. It was a letter to Felix's white wife. "Dear Madam," it began. "I don't know if you know me, but I know you. I am Felix's wife here in Nigeria. We've been married for 10 years. We have 3 children. I was told he would leave you and bring me abroad, but I now know the truth." Pause. Her fingers trembled. Was this revenge? Or freedom? She folded the letter and placed it in her drawer. She didn't send it, but writing it helped her breathe. For the first time in years, she saw her pain clearly. It wasn't just Felix's betrayal that hurt. It was her own silence, the years of pretending, the lost time, and the love that had grown cold. "I deserve better," she whispered to herself. And slowly, for the first time in 10 years, Maria began to believe it. Maria began to take small steps. She no longer waited by the phone hoping Felix would call. She stopped checking his last scene on WhatsApp or scrolling through his social media profiles hoping to catch a glimpse of his new life. Instead, she focused on herself. She began attending a women's support group at the local community center. First, she just listened. But over time, she shared her story. And with every word she spoke, the weight in her chest grew lighter. One evening after a session, an older woman named Auntie Thelma walked up to her. "You're stronger than you think," she said. "And you're not alone. A lot of women suffer in silence. But you still have time to rewrite your story." Those words stuck with her. Maria started waking up earlier. She'd rise before the children, take a walk down the quiet street, and breathe in the morning air. It was her new way of feeling alive again. One morning, she passed a newly opened tailoring shop and paused to look at the bright dresses hanging outside. The owner, a cheerful young woman named Linda, greeted her warmly. "You like to sew?" she asked. Maria hesitated. "I used to. Before life got complicated." "Come by any time," Linda smiled. "I could use extra hands." That night, Maria found herself remembering the old sewing machine her mother had kept under the stairs. Maybe, just maybe, she could start again. Maria dusted off the sewing machine and set it on the dining table. It was rusty and used for years, but it still worked. The hum of the motor brought back memories. Days when she made clothes for neighbors just to support herself before Felix returned. She stayed up late practicing stitches. It felt like something long lost was waking up in her hands. The next day, she returned to Linda's shop. "Can I start helping here?" she asked. Linda grinned. "You just made my day." It was a simple beginning. But for Maria it was everything. Weeks passed, and Maria began earning small income from sewing. Word spread quickly about her skill. Soon neighbors were bringing fabric, asking for dresses for church, school events, even weddings. She worked in the afternoons while the kids were at school and in the evenings after dinner. One day, her daughter Amara walked into the sewing space and said, "Mummy, I'm proud of you." Maria paused, holding the fabric mid-stitch. "Why?" "Because you don't cry anymore." Maria swallowed the lump in her throat. Her child had noticed. Felix called one evening out of the blue. Maria's phone lit up with his international number. For a moment, her hand trembled. She stared at the screen, unsure whether to pick up. Then she sighed and answered. "Hello, Maria. How are the kids?" His voice was casual, like nothing had happened. "They're fine. I sent some money last week. Did you get it?" "I did." There was silence on the line. "So, why haven't you been picking my calls lately?" he asked, sounding irritated. Maria's voice was calm. "Because I don't want to talk to someone who lies to me." Felix scoffed on the other end of the line. "Lies? What lies again?" "You know what I'm talking about, Felix. You promised me a life with you. You promised to process my papers. You said you'd leave that woman. Yet here we are, 10 years later." He sounded defensive. "I've had issues. Life isn't always easy here. You think I don't have my own struggles?" Maria's voice was firm. "You have another family, Felix. Don't pretend like I'm crazy." Silence. She continued. "I deserve more than being your hidden wife. I'm done pretending. Then she hung up. And for the first time she didn't cry after. The days that followed were strangely peaceful. Maria felt free. Felix didn't call again. But this time she didn't wait. She poured her energy into work, into her children, into living. She made dresses with joy, hummed while she ironed, and began laughing more often. Neighbors started noticing. You look different these days, one said. Happier. Maria smiled. I finally stopped waiting. Her eldest daughter, Amara, came home one day with a school project, a family tree. But Mummy, she said, how do I draw Daddy when we don't even know him? Maria felt a knot in her chest. You can just write his name. That's enough. But I want to draw you sewing. Can I? Maria smiled. Yes, you can draw me sewing. That's who I am. It was a small moment, but it mattered. Her children were beginning to see her, not just as a mother, but as a woman with strength, with purpose. Months rolled by. Maria saved enough from her sewing to buy a second-hand phone. She opened a business page and started posting pictures of her designs. Orders trickled in. Linda, her friend from the shop, helped her get new clients. You're becoming popular, Linda teased one afternoon. Soon you'll open your own store. Maria laughed. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. But something inside her believed it was possible. On her 34th birthday, Maria did something she hadn't done in years. She celebrated. She invited a few close friends, cooked a simple meal and played music. The children danced around the living room, giggling with delight. Linda brought a cake. To new beginnings, she toasted. Maria raised her glass of fruit wine and smiled. To peace, to growth, and to women who finally choose themselves. Everyone clapped. It was the first birthday Maria spent without tears. One evening, Maria received an unexpected message from Felix. It wasn't long, just a photo of a boy with curly hair and light skin, holding a balloon. Meet my son, Liam. No explanation. No apology. Maria stared at the screen, heart still. She had already known about the child. But to see the photo, that was different. It made the truth undeniable. She simply replied, Thanks for the honesty. I hope you're there for him, the way you never were for our daughters. She put the phone down. No anger. No rage. Just closure. Maria no longer spoke of divorce with fear. She began to see it as a door, not a wall. Way out, not shame. She met with a legal aid woman from her support group, who guided her through the process. He doesn't have to be here, the woman said. You have proof of abandonment. You can still file. Maria nodded. I just want to be free. Filing wasn't easy. It meant digging up documents, photos, memories she had buried deep. But she faced each page with courage. This time she wasn't doing it for Felix. She was doing it for herself. When news of her filing spread, Maria received mixed reactions. Some relatives criticized her. But he still sends money, one aunt said. Why disgrace yourself? Maria replied calmly. I'm not disgracing myself. I'm reclaiming my life. Others applauded her. Women from church pulled her aside to whisper, You're brave. I wish I had your strength. She didn't feel brave. But she was no longer scared. One quiet afternoon, Maria received a call from an unknown number. A woman's voice came through. Is this Maria? My name is Rebecca. I think we need to talk. Maria's heart froze. It was her. Felix's other wife. Maria took a deep breath. Yes, this is Maria. Rebecca spoke gently. I found your message. The one you never sent. Felix had left his email open one day. I read it. Maria said nothing. I just want to know the truth, Rebecca continued. Are you really his wife? Yes, Maria said softly. I've been his wife for 10 years. We have 3 daughters together. There was silence. I'm sorry, Rebecca whispered. So was Maria. For both of them. Maria and Rebecca spoke for almost an hour. They shared stories, timelines, emotions. Everything matched. Felix had played both women, keeping secrets, living two lives. Rebecca was heartbroken. He told me he only married you out of family pressure. He said you weren't serious. Maria laughed bitterly. He told me he was divorcing you to bring me over. They both sat in silence. Maybe we were both fooled, Maria said quietly. Rebecca agreed. After the call ended, Maria felt an odd peace. Not joy, not sadness, just peace. She had confirmation now. The truth was no longer something she alone carried. The betrayal was no longer hers to bury. Rebecca later sent her a message. I've asked him to leave. I don't want to be part of his lies anymore. Thank you for telling me the truth. Maria responded. You didn't deserve this either. I wish you healing. Two women, once strangers, now connected by heartbreak and healing. Maria's tailoring business continued to grow. She saved enough to rent a small kiosk down the road. She painted the walls herself, hung fabric neatly, and placed a sign above the door. Mara Designs. Her children were the first to run inside. Mummy, it's so beautiful. Maria looked around, eyes misty. It's ours. At church, during testimony time, Maria finally stood up. She hadn't spoken publicly in years. But this time, she walked to the altar with confidence. I want to thank God for giving me the courage to start again, she said. I thought I needed a man to save me. But God gave me the strength to save myself. The hall erupted in applause. And Maria smiled like a woman finally whole. Maria's testimony touched many hearts. After the service, several women approached her, some with tears in their eyes. One whispered, Your story is mine too. I just haven't had the courage to say it out loud. Another hugged her and said, You've given me hope. That night, Maria sat on her bed, thinking about everything she had been through. From the day Felix promised her a future abroad, to the years of waiting, loneliness, and betrayal. She had cried so much over the years, but now, she was starting to smile more. It was strange. She didn't feel broken anymore. For the first time in a long time, she felt proud of herself. The following week, Maria received a phone call from a local women's association. They had heard about her business and her story and invited her to speak at their monthly gathering. First she hesitated. Me. Speak again. But Linda encouraged her. You have no idea how powerful your voice is. Say yes. So she did. Standing before a group of 30 women, Maria shared her story once more, not as a victim but as a survivor. She spoke about betrayal, motherhood, building a business from nothing, and the quiet strength it took to start again. By the end, several women stood and clapped. One shouted, God bless you, Maria. And Maria smiled through tears. Maria's tailoring shop flourished. She hired 2 apprentices, young girls who had dropped out of school due to financial struggles. She trained them with patience, often reminding them, no matter where life takes you, never forget your worth. She named her apprentices Aisha and Temi. They worked hard and learned quickly. Business picked up, and soon Mara Designs became a household name in the neighborhood. Even women from neighboring streets came to her shop. Some brought clothes, some came for advice. Others just sat to talk. Maria had unknowingly become a pillar in her community. One afternoon, as Maria was adjusting the neckline of a client's gown, her phone rang. It was a new number. She answered without hesitation. Maria. It's Felix. He paused. His voice hadn't changed, but something in her had. What do you want? She asked calmly. I heard about the divorce. Are you really going through with it? Yes. I already did. Silence. I was going to come back, he muttered. Maria shook her head. Not for me. Only to cover your mess. He didn't argue. I don't hate you, Felix, she said. But I won't let you waste my life anymore. Then she hung up. That night Maria told her children gently and simply, Daddy won't be living with us anymore. But you are loved, and that won't ever change. The girls were quiet. Amara looked up. Will we ever see him again? Maria took a deep breath. Maybe. One day. But don't wait for him. He has his life. And we have ours. She expected tears. Instead, her daughters wrapped their arms around her. We have you, Mummy. That's enough. Maria's eyes filled with tears. She didn't feel like a failure anymore. She felt like a mother, present, strong, and enough. Maria began attending business workshops at the community center. She learned about pricing, social media marketing, and customer service. She started offering online consultations and designing clothes for clients in other cities. One day, a woman from Lagos placed a bulk order for a bridal train. Mara Designs, right? The woman said. I saw your work online. You're talented. Maria's hands trembled as she wrote down the order. She had never received such a large request before. But she smiled. Thank you. I'll deliver something beautiful. And she did. Maria's shop buzzed with activity. Clients came and went. Her apprentices gained confidence and started designing their own patterns. Maria gave them room to grow. One evening, Temi approached her shyly. Auntie Maria, I want to go back to school. I've saved up a little. Maria felt a lump in her throat. Then you will. And I'll help with the rest. Helping Temi reminded Maria of herself. Young, hopeful, and full of dreams. She would never let another girl feel trapped the way she had. One morning, as Maria swept in front of her shop, a black car pulled up. A tall, well-dressed man stepped out and walked toward her. She didn't recognize him immediately. Maria, he said with a smile. It's me, Daniel. From university. She blinked. Had been over a decade. Daniel had been her classmate, a kind and quiet man who had once asked her out before life swept them in different directions. I'm in town for work, he said. I heard about your business from someone. I had to see it. Maria was stunned. Wow, it's been so long. Daniel visited again the following week. And the week after that. They talked, laughed, and reconnected like old friends. He asked questions about her daughters, her business, her story. He never judged her. You've been through so much, he said one evening. But you're standing strong. That's rare. Maria looked at him carefully. Why are you really here, Daniel? He smiled. Because I admire you. And I never stopped wondering what could have been. Her heart fluttered, a feeling she hadn't felt in years. Maria didn't rush anything. She had learned the hard way that not every sweet word was love. She took her time. Daniel respected that. He visited with gifts for the girls, spent time helping them with homework, and never pressured her. One evening, while walking together after church, he said, I don't want to replace anyone. I just want to be present. For you. For them. If you'll let me. Maria looked up at the stars, her heart quiet. I'm not ready yet, she said softly. But I'm healing. And that means something. Daniel nodded. Then I'll wait. And for once, Maria believed him. Maria had changed. The old version of her, the woman who waited endlessly for phone calls, for promises, for love, was gone. In her place stood someone new. A woman who knew her value, who had tasted pain and survived it. She no longer begged for affection. She no longer stayed quiet for peace. She chose herself now. And everyone could see it. Even her neighbors noticed the difference. Maria, you're glowing these days, one old woman said at the market. Maria chuckled. Glowing. Maybe I've finally learned how to smile from inside. It was true. Her joy was no longer borrowed. It was hers. One Sunday after service, Daniel walked Maria and the girls home. The children had grown fond of him. He carried the smallest, Chioma, on his shoulders while Amara and Mimi raced ahead laughing. Maria watched quietly. Felt strange, normal even. Like something she hadn't known she needed. But it also scared her. Could she trust again? As they reached her door, Daniel turned to her. I know you're afraid, he said gently. And I don't blame you. But I'm not Felix. I'm not here to break you. Maria's eyes welled with tears. I just don't want to be fooled again. You won't, he said simply. The divorce papers arrived at her doorstep 2 weeks later, final and stamped. Felix hadn't contested. He didn't even respond. It was over. Maria sat at her dining table holding the envelope. The girls were at school. The house was quiet. And in that silence she whispered, "It's done." She didn't cry. She didn't smile. She just breathed. 10 years of waiting. 10 years of holding on. And now she was free. Maria called her mother that evening. "It's official, Mama," she said. "I'm no longer his wife." Mama Elsie paused for a moment. "How do you feel?" "I feel light," Maria replied. "Like a heavy coat has been taken off me." Mama sighed deeply. "You've done well, my child. Now walk like a woman who's free. No shame. No regret." Maria nodded. "I will." And she meant it. With the weight of Felix gone, Maria began to dream again. Real dreams. Not about marriage or visas but about expansion. She wanted to open a bigger store. Hire more apprentices. Maybe even teach tailoring to teenage girls in the community. She discussed it with Linda one evening after work. "You're thinking big," Linda smiled. "I have to," Maria replied. "I spent too many years thinking small. Now I want my daughters to see what's possible." And just like that, a new vision was born. Maria registered her business officially and opened a small bank account in the shop's name. It felt empowering to hold her business certificate in her hands. The new Mara Designs banner hung proudly at the entrance of her improved store. Her daughters helped her set up a display shelf for fabrics and finished gowns. "Mummy, can I be your manager when I grow up?" Mimi asked, grinning. Maria laughed. "Only if you don't fire me first." The shop buzzed with life. It wasn't just a place to sew anymore. It was a place where futures were being stitched together. Daniel continued visiting, never overstepping. Sometimes he brought dinner. Other times he took the kids to the park or helped fix broken shelves in the shop. He never brought up marriage. Never pressured her. Just stayed consistent. Maria found herself looking forward to his visits. Not out of need but out of appreciation. One evening she asked, "Why are you really still here?" Daniel smiled. "Because being around you makes me better. You don't need saving, Maria. But I like being beside someone so strong." Maria blinked back tears. Maybe love wasn't always loud. Maybe sometimes it was patient. Months passed. Mara Designs became a known name even beyond her community. Maria was invited to speak at women's conferences. She shared her story, not for pity but to empower. She always ended with, "You don't have to stay where love no longer lives. You are allowed to choose yourself." Women clapped. Some wept. Others stood in silence, absorbing every word. Maria didn't know how far her words reached. But she knew if she could help even one woman believe again, it was worth it. One Sunday afternoon, as Maria arranged fabrics in the shop, her daughter Amara walked in with a notebook. "Mummy, my teacher asked me to write about a hero. I wrote about you." Maria turned, surprised. "Me?" "Yes," Amara said shyly. "You didn't give up. Even when Daddy left, you still smiled. You still took care of us. That makes you my hero." Maria hugged her tightly, her chest swelling with emotion. At that moment, every pain, every tear, every lonely night felt worth it. Later that night, Maria stood in front of her mirror. She looked at the woman staring back, strong shoulders, clear eyes, and a soft smile. Not because of a man. Not because of money. But because she had found peace within herself. She brushed her hand over her braided hair and whispered, "I made it." Not to a destination, but out of despair. Out of silence. Out of being invisible. And now she was finally living. Months turned into a year. Mara Designs became more than just a business. It became a movement. Maria launched free weekend sewing classes for teenage girls. Every Saturday, her shop filled with laughter, the whir of machines, and excited chatter. Some girls came from broken homes. Others came simply to learn. But all of them left with a sense of confidence Maria recognized deeply. "You're all daughters of strength," she would tell them. "And your story is still being written." The girls called her Mama Mara, a name that warmed her heart every time. Felix called again. Unexpected. Uninvited. Maria was sitting at her shop counter, sipping Zobo when her phone rang. She answered not out of longing, but from a place of peace. "Maria, I heard about your shop," Felix said. "I'm proud of you." "Thank you," she replied simply. "I've been thinking," he continued. "Maybe I could come back. We could try again for the kids." Maria let out a gentle laugh. Not bitter. Not angry. Just clear. "You were gone when we needed you," she said. "We've already healed. You don't get to return just because we're doing fine." She hung up, heart steady. Daniel proposed 6 months later. It wasn't a grand gesture. No crowd. No cameras. Just a quiet evening after dinner. The girls were asleep, and the sky was filled with stars. He held her hand and said, "I love you, Maria. And not for what you've survived, but for who you are. I want to build something with you, no lies, no running. Just honesty. Just us." Maria looked at the ring, then at the man who had been steady through her rebuilding. "I need time," she whispered. "Not because I'm unsure, but because I want to say yes with my whole heart." Daniel nodded. "I'll wait. Just like I promised." Maria told her girls about the proposal over breakfast. Amara beamed. "Does this mean we'll have a new daddy?" Maria smiled gently. "It means we might have someone who chooses us every day. But will he still love us like now?" Mimi asked. "Yes, baby," Maria said. "He already does." Chioma clapped. "Can I wear a white dress too?" They all laughed. That morning was filled with giggles and pancakes. Maria didn't know what the future held, but she finally knew she could face it, with or without anyone beside her. As the 2nd anniversary of her shop approached, Maria decided to host a celebration. It wasn't just about business, it was about survival. She invited clients, neighbors, fellow women entrepreneurs, and every girl she had mentored. The event was held in front of her shop. Music played, chairs were arranged in a circle, and colorful dresses hung from the walls. Linda brought a cake. The girls performed a dance. Even Daniel helped with decorations, wearing an apron and laughing when the balloons kept popping. It was a celebration of growth, of courage, of choosing light in spite of darkness. During the event, Maria stood up to speak. The crowd grew quiet. "I built this shop with pain in my bones and tears in my eyes," she began. "But also with faith in my heart. When everything around me fell apart, I stitched hope into fabric. And somehow, those pieces came together." She looked around at the young girls, the women nodding, the smiles surrounding her. "I am not the woman who begged a man to stay. I am the woman who stayed for herself. And that is more than enough." Cheers erupted. Some stood to clap. Others wiped their eyes. As the sun set on the event, Maria sat quietly at the edge of her shop, watching the sky turn pink and gold. Daniel sat beside her, their shoulders touching. "You did this," he said, looking at the space around them. "We did," she replied. He looked at her. "Are you ready now?" She didn't speak for a while. Then she turned, eyes soft and steady. "Yes." Daniel smiled. "Then let's build something new together." Their wedding was simple, intimate, and full of meaning. Maria wore a soft ivory gown she made herself. The girls wore matching dresses. Mama Elsie walked her down the aisle with pride. Linda was her maid of honor. The vows were tender. The air smelled of jasmine and warm promise. "I don't just take you as my husband," Maria said. "I welcome you into the life I've built, with scars, strength, and love." Daniel whispered, "And I will never stop choosing you." When they kissed, the crowd erupted in joy. But Maria's heart was the loudest celebration of all. They moved into a small 3-bedroom apartment across town. Maria kept her shop running. Daniel started a tech business from home. The girls settled quickly, calling him Uncle D before eventually dropping the uncle. He helped with homework, attended school meetings, and tucked them in at night. Maria would often pause to watch him with the girls, gratitude warming her chest. She hadn't just rebuilt her life, she had transformed it. And every day, she chose joy over memory, love over fear, and peace over regret. Years later, Maria sat in front of a room full of young women at a seminar. She was invited as a guest speaker. She smiled and began. "My name is Maria. I was once abandoned. Later. But I rose. I started again with nothing but pain and a sewing machine. I chose to stop waiting and start living." The room was still. Every eye was on her. And if you're here today, broken or doubting or stuck, let me remind you, you are not a mistake. You are not disposable. You are not too late. You can begin again. And they